All right, welcome back. So I'm filming on my phone today because my camera died and I'm not used to like where I'm supposed to look. So I think I'm supposed to look here, but if it looks like I'm looking elsewhere and like not at you, I'm sorry. I just don't, it's a little confusing. So anyway, let's get into the video. Today's video is going to be about the MCAT and how I scored a 518. So I'll be talking about general strategies and the resources that I used. So let's get right into it. First thing, in terms of timing, you really want to give yourself enough time to not only study for the MCAT, but to also retake it if necessary. So for example, I took the test in August of 2022, and I got my score back in September of 2022. And I applied in the summer or during the summer of 2023. So that's a long time. And the reason I did that is because if I got a score back in September that I didn't like, I still had enough time to study and recoup and take the test again before I spent all that money on applying. Because if you don't do that, you are betting on yourself, which is good, but with the MCAT is maybe not ideal. And if you don't get a score you want, and let's say you get your score back in May, you don't have any time to re-strategize. You either have to apply with the score you get, or you have to wait until next year and reapply. So if you are planning ahead, I recommend giving yourself a buffer. In terms of how long I actually studied for the test, I studied for about 4 months. I started in May and took the test end of August. I gave myself a lot of time because I personally needed to brush up on a lot of topics. I didn't do that well in undergrad, as my previous videos will tell you. And I had, I was going through some stuff in in undergrad. So hi, Butter. Hi, sweetheart. So I was going through some stuff in undergrad, so I just didn't remember a lot of the core, my cat's very distracting, a lot of the core pre-med stuff. So I needed to give myself ample time to do a lot of content review. If you, on the other hand, really mastered everything in undergrad and it's pretty recent and fresh in your mind, you might be able to get away with studying for 2 or 3 months, but that just wasn't me. I knew I needed to dedicate a lot of time to content review. So that being said, I'll get into the resources I used. So first up, lots of people talk about the Kaplan and Princeton review books. I actually didn't use either of those. There's nothing wrong with them. I just personally, again, I was not playing around. I really wanted to do well on this test. My GPA was low. I knew I had to really step it up. And I actually bought some Princeton books, but my dog is barking. This video is just full of distractions, I'm sorry. So I bought Princeton books, but it was just too boring. I couldn't get myself to just read a chapter and then what? It just felt like I wasn't learning. It felt like I was making, it felt like an excuse, oh, I'm being productive, I'm reading this chapter, but it wasn't really, I wasn't really retaining any information. And frankly, I felt like it was a waste of time. So I ended up getting a different resource, which I'm not sponsored by, anything like that. I don't even know if they do sponsorships, but it might sound like I am because I highly, highly recommend it. So I did the Med School Insiders MCAT prep course. This was fantastic. In terms of cost, it cost me, I think, about $900 because I got it when it was first rolling out. So there was a special. I think now it's going for $1,500, which still isn't bad at all, considering it gives you literally all the content you need. You don't need any other resources for content review. You don't need anything else. I mean, you can use YouTube videos, and I did, but those are free. You don't need to pay for any other Princeton or Kaplan or anything for content. So the way it's set up, it's this website that you get access to, and it goes through a bunch of modules with all the information you will need for Psych Soc, for Biochem, and for Chem Phys. It goes in a very logical way, like it's sort of like building blocks, and it intersperses different topics, but in a way that's building so that you're not like confused or also bored, because again, you're doing different topics every day, but they're still hi butter, but they still are building on each other. The other great thing about the way the modules are set up is that it's not like the books where it's just like blocks of text and you're just like sitting there like reading. It's more like bullet points, and within that there's like mnemonics and there's pointers to help you remember how to apply things and help you kind of like think about the ways in which it'll come up in the MCAT. And then there's also practice questions interspersed between all the material you're learning. And there's also YouTube videos that are linked, again, like between all the things you're learning. So you're using different types of modes of studying. You're reading, but you're also watching videos, but you're also doing practice questions. And again, you're really getting the most bang for your buck in terms of time. So I love the Med School Insiders course. It's self-paced, so you don't have to, there's no like live component to it, so you can just do it at your own convenience. And the other thing it has, they have at the end of each module, they have like practice tests. It's not full-length tests, but just practice tests testing the module. And they're very similar to AAMC. They're definitely harder, but they're very similarly worded, and like the format is very similar. So could not recommend that enough. Again, I think it's way better than Princeton or Kaplan, but that's just me. Next thing I used was Anki. So lots of people talk about Anki. You don't need it. I know plenty of people who did very well on the MCAT without using Anki, but as I said earlier, I was not playing around. I had forgotten a lot of things from undergrad, so I needed something that was going to help me reinforce what I had learned. Anki's free, and there's also plenty of videos on YouTube helping explain how to use it, because there is a bit of a learning curve. And aside from that, a lot of people use pre-made decks. So some lovely people on Reddit, I can think of two decks in particular. There's the Anki deck and the Miles Down deck, which I can link below. So some lovely people on Reddit made these decks when they were studying for the MCAT, and then have graciously shared them with us. And they are pre-made decks with basically all the information you would need. I actually did not use any of these pre-made decks, not because they're not good enough, they're fantastic, but because I felt like I was gonna get more out of learning if I made my own decks. If you're pressed for time, this cat, hi. If you're pressed for time, definitely consider using a pre-made deck. I felt like I had enough time, and as I said, I wanted to really make sure I was covering all my bases. And just for the way I learn, it was easier for me to make my own cards with like my own base of knowledge. And I just think it helped me learn things better. But if you don't feel like you need that level of reinforcement, you can just use pre-made decks. Plenty of people use them and love them. So I'll link those below. They're fantastic. I would do Anki every single morning for like 2 or 3 hours. I did a lot of Anki. It was maybe overkill, but as I said, like I just had forgotten so much. I really needed a lot of Anki. Anki, I think, was a huge reason why I scored the way I did. So yeah. Next resource is UWorld. UWorld is great. UWorld is a question bank full of hundreds of questions MCAT style questions. What's really great about UWorld is the explanations. UWorld really excels at explaining what you got wrong and how to think about the topic you got wrong. Their explanations are very in-depth, very detailed, and if you're someone like me who was sort of struggling with a lot of concepts, it really helped clarify a lot of things for me. The other great thing about UWorld is you can make your own like tests. So UWorld is broken up into different like topics within like the biochem and the biology and chemistry and psych-soc. So you can like check boxes and decide like what topic specifically you want to study. So let's say you're feeling like, you know what, I've been kind of weak on genetics. You can just check the genetics box and it'll make a quiz or a test, whatever you want to call it. And you can say how many questions you want. Say you only want 5, or maybe you're really going crazy, you want to do 30. You can select 30 questions and you can do however many questions you want for that specific topic. So UWorld is awesome, definitely something you should consider getting. The fourth thing I'll mention is probably the most important one, and if you don't get anything else from this video, this is the one you have to get. You don't have to, but like you have to. It's the AAMC bundle. So AAMC is the company that makes the MCAT. So they have in their bundle, they have about 4 or 5 practice tests and a bunch of practice questions. You need this because this, again, is going to most closely mimic the actual test. The way I use this is the bundle has, it's either a sample or a diagnostic or both, I can't remember. I took the diagnostic or the sample, whatever it's called, at the very beginning of my studying in May. I scored about a 500. I think it was exactly a 500. And that's just good to have a baseline. I don't think it's a good predictor of what you're gonna get. It's just kind of good to know like where you are and what things you need to work on. So I took that at the very beginning, and then I saved the other 4 or 5 or however many tests for the end. So my exam, my real exam, was the 27th of August. So that means that the 20th of August, I took a practice test from the AAMC. The 13th of August, I took a practice test from the AAMC, and so on and so forth until I ran out. So because there's only 4 or 5, I got another resource, which is called Blueprint, and they have many practice tests. I think I bought the packet with 10 tests, which was kind of overkill looking back, because I think I only used like 6 of them. And honestly, the Blueprint exams I don't think are very representative of the real thing. They are more to train yourself to take an 8-hour exam. I felt like I wasn't gonna get enough practice with the just 4 or 5 AAMC ones, which is why I got Blueprint ones to really like train myself to sit at a desk and like take an 8-hour exam. I was scoring, I think I started at like 505 with the Blueprint exam, then I think I worked my way up to a 508. And then when I switched to AAMC, I immediately shot up to a 516. So it's not predictive of your score, at least for me. It's again, it was more just about stamina, about being able to sit at your desk for so long and like mentally not like check out. So yeah, those are the resources I used. As I said, I started with the 500, then I got like around 505, 506, 507 on the Blueprint exams. When I started the AAMC exams about a month out from my real test, I got a 516, then I got a 517, then I got a 518, and then my last test before my real one, I got a 517, and then on the real test, I got a 518. So those are the resources I used, and that's sort of like the progression of my scores. I can also make a video more specifically about like my schedule, like day to day, what I would do. I think this video is long enough already, so I'll end it around here. One last thing to keep in mind is, and this is kind of cheesy and it's more of like a mindset thing, but the MCAT is only an IQ test if you let it be. I remember when I went into it, I kind of was thinking like, well, like, I don't know if I'm that smart. I don't know if I can get a good score because I'm not that smart. Which is like, first of all, like, whatever, silly that I was thinking that way. But it's really not an IQ test. As I said, I started with a 500, I ended with a 518. So the only difference between those scores was consistency and studying and learning the material, learning the test. You can definitely improve. Don't be discouraged if your, initial diagnostic is low. Most people's are pretty low. So just don't pay attention to that, truly. Like, just use it as like okay, whatever, doesn't really matter. It's just good to get an idea of where you are, but that's about it. So yeah, don't come into it thinking there's like a level or like a ceiling for you. You get into it what you put out. So I really believe that. I think most people can do really well on this test if you use the right resources, if you give yourself enough time. So yeah, that's the video. If you have any more questions, feel free to comment down below or DM me and I will happily reply. So yeah, bye.